Hello. Good morning, people of the Sunshine Coast. I'm your Channel 4 reporter, Tyler Norman. Today, we have a special report on the Australian pest known as the cane toad. Cane toads were first introduced to Australian soil back in 1935 to help control cane beetles. Australia had acquired 101 toads after hearing about it from the Americans. The Americans were using cane toads over in Hawaii and the Caribbean islands to control cane beetles, and so Australia thought this would be a great plan to acquire some cane toads to help with our cane beetle problem. Why should you, the people of the Sunshine Coast, care about this issue? Well, cane toads decimate everything in their path, reduce majority of the native Australian wildlife populations. Majority of the native predators are slowly adapting, learning not to eat cane toads, but some predators have still not adapted these skills. Cane toads can also find themselves in your pet's drinking bowls. The water can be contaminated. When the pet's drinking the water, the poison in the water makes its way through the animal system, making the animal sick. We now cross over to our cane toad specialist, Jacob, that will now talk about the origins of this invasive species.
The cane toad, or Buffo marinus, has an international distribution area in the Americas, Africa and Eurasia. The cane toad is among the world's largest amphibians, measuring up to 23 centimetres and 1.25 kilos. As mentioned by Tyler, the cane toad was introduced into Australia in 1935. The toads were imported from Hawaii, where they had been established with toads originally from Central America. During 1935 to 1937, the 101 cane toads introduced bred and reached numbers of around 3,000 individuals. The offspring were widely dispersed in the Australian state of Queensland. This was due to a desperate biological control effort to reduce the scarab beetle. By 1940, the scarab beetle still infests sugarcane fields where the cane toads have established themselves. It was obvious that the strategy had not been successful.
The cane toad is now spread throughout Queensland, northern New South Wales, and the wet dry tropics of the Northern Territory. In 2009, the toad crossed the border into Western Australia, travelling nearly 3,000 kilometres from where it was first introduced. This is an average of 50 kilometres per year. The cane toad currently encompasses an area of approximately 2 million square kilometres. The latest frontier of the cane toad is heading through the Kimberley region of Western Australia and through the iconic World Heritage listed Kakadu National Park. On the other side of the continent, a Shire Council in Sydney is currently attempting to eradicate a breeding population of toads apparently established by animals accidentally transported from infested areas.
It is widely known that the cane toad was introduced into Australia as a biological control method to reduce the sugarcane beetle. In the years leading up to the introduction of the cane toad, sugarcane crops were being devastated by one insect in particular, the cane beetle, or scrub beetle. The larvae of this beetle feeds on the sugarcane's root system, often killing the plant shortly before harvest. The beetle has a 2-year life cycle and spends most of their life underground, away from the cane toad. The beetles emerge from the soil for approximately 1 to 3 hours during mating. After emerging from the soil, the beetles fly to the leaves of the sugarcane plant to mate, well out of reach of the cane toad.
That, Jacob? Really interesting. You heard about the problem. Now, what are we going to do about it? To tell us more about that, we now have conservationist and toad enthusiast, Marnie.
Thank you, Tyler. As you are aware, cane toads are now a very big problem within Australia. This is one I found earlier in the fields behind me. The cane toad is tough and adaptable and is also poisonous throughout its life cycle. This is having an adverse effect on the native wildlife within Australia. Today, I will be giving you some insight into the current methods in place helping reduce the cane toad populations and what is currently being done by the government to eradicate cane toads in Australia. There are a few major methods in place right now which are helping control population numbers throughout the affected areas. Although much is known about the cane toad, in other countries, the biodiversity impacts of cane toads on Australian wildlife are complex and not fully understood. As a result, studies are underway which will help clarify the severity of the cane toad impacts on native predators and establish ecosystem level impacts of cane toads. In recent studies, it has been shown that some native predators are adapting to the threat of the cane toad, both through human intervention and through animals learning how to avoid the poison glands naturally. Researchers are now implementing programs in which they are using native predators to control the cane toad. One such study, which is underway, is the use of native predatory ants, commonly known as the meat ant, in an effort to reduce cane toad numbers in the tropics of Australia, with current results suggesting it to be a great success. There are also other physical methods used in the fight against cane toads. A common one used by the government are toad-proof fences, which have been found to be relatively effective against cane toads. So, you may be wondering, what can I do as a member of the community to help with this problem? Well, there is an effortless way you can help as well. By collecting cane toads and disposing of them, we can reduce the number of local populations. Although this may seem like a drop in the ocean kind of approach, it can help to eradicate local populations. Although, a very important thing to remember is that there are some native frog species that do resemble toads, and it is vital that you properly identify every animal you have collected, so we don't unintentionally do more harm than good. Now, back to you in the office.
We now know the historical origins and the present issues. What is the trajectory for the progressive cane toad? Is there any way of stopping it? We now cross over to Jasmin to elaborate more on the future.
Thanks, Tyler. So what will happen to the population range if we carry on maintaining the same general standard of treatment? Cane toads in northern Western Australia used to be an uncommon occurrence due to the aridity and low mortality rate. Now, due to implementation of artificial water bodies for pastoralism, the cane toad now has an accessible coastline with the perfect conditions in which to breed and migrate.
As indicated by Figure 1, by the yellow dots, you can see the lack of connectivity and opportunity to migrate via natural water bodies across such arid land was limited and near possible down the northwestern coastline. However, as you can see by the black dots shown, that the artificial water bodies construct a connected breeding space perfect for the cane toad range to expand and progress. Unfortunately, as our agricultural demands increased, so did the range of the cane toad, as we constructed a perfect pathway for their species to thrive and multiply across Australia.
Biological interventions, as Marnie mentioned earlier, are some possibilities that are being tested for application to a wider sample. Although a more direct approach that can be undertaken immediately is the construction of toad-proof fences around pastoralised water bodies. Keeping in mind we want the eradication to be as ethically appropriate as possible. An equally financially and economically efficient change is occurring now as pastoralists are replacing their water sources with above-ground water tanks, saving cane toad contamination entirely, simultaneously implementing a major conservational barrier for primary breeding grounds. The direction we are taking now, with little regulation or implementation, will put the cane toad in the southwestern Pilbara in an estimated 20 to 29 years, posing a great threat to the endemic native predator species that are naive to the toxicity of this prey. The cane toad is highly resistant and can reproduce in incredible amounts, so there is no stopping them, but we can slow them down. With the disruption of such artificial landscapes, we could significantly halt the range progression of the invasive species. Since the abundant cane toad has occupied the Australian coastline for generations, some species known to that same range have evolved some resistance towards the cane toad, if its size or just teaching their offspring to avoid them. Unfortunately, relying on these evolutionary changes to take place just in time for the spread of such a highly reproductive species isn't practical. Therefore, human intervention is important. Back to you in the newsroom.
Thank you, Jasmin. Well, you heard them, folks. Get involved. To find out more information about what we have talked about and how you can help, please pay a visit to our Facebook page, Toadwatch. There are links to articles and websites regarding conservational efforts and how to prevent them in your backyard. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the team to take the time to listen to this important report on the invasive species of cane toads.